Hello, YouTube Sidekick here with a little video that I hope is going to actually help us all get ready for the F4E. I mean, there's been an awful lot of hype about Heatblur's F4E, which means that there's some pretty high expectations out there as well. I guess one thing that I guess a lot of people recognize, although some players may not, is that the F4 is going to be a major step backwards in terms of aircraft design and technology compared to the jets that, maybe most players fly, like the F-18. The F-16. It promises to be a very detailed and sophisticated digital model, but it will not be as sophisticated as an aircraft as the modern jets. And this may require some adjustment if you're used to flying in those fourth-generation machines. And if you haven't, for instance, spent a lot of time dropping iron bombs without the aid of a CCIP pipper, you might be unpleasantly surprised with just how hard it is to hit what you're aiming at without that assistance. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what to watch out for, how to change your mindset maybe, how to continue to be deadly with dumb bombs, but this time by using your hands and feet, and not just a computer screen. See, most of us kind of come at this backwards. We start with modern technology with all of the extra cues that we get there, and then we work backwards to the old ways, whereas pilots do it the other way around. They start in an aircraft like the T-28, similar to the F-5 I'm sitting in right now, that's a lot more basic. And then they learn to perform things like iron bombing without all of the cues, and then they work forward into the more sophisticated jet. And I think working backwards, like a lot of us do in DCS, it can be a bit of an issue, because you see, especially in iron bombing, CCIP's major advantage is that it allows you to drop bombs without needing a very good plan for how to do it. And if you mess up the approach and the roll-in, it allows you to correct your mistakes and still hit the target. So you don't really need to have good, solid, basic technique to hit a target when you're using CCIP. And this means that you can tend to develop some bad habits. And those are habits that aren't going to serve you very well when you go back in time to an earlier aircraft, like the F4. As I said, real pilots, on the other hand, start from the basics and they learn the technique and good habits in the absence of the aid of that CCIP pipper. This actually does help them be consistent when they have one. The whole point of good technique is to develop consistency. If every bomb run feels the same, then you start making adjustments by feel instead of by reading the numbers. And when you start doing this in a high-stress environment, that's what you need. You won't have the bandwidth to fly by the numbers when somebody's trying to kill you while you're doing this. So today, we're going to go out to the range in the F5 and do a couple of different things. First, we're going to go build our own bombing table. Yep, that's what we're going to do, or at least we're going to build one entry in the table using a technique that I'll show you today. You could go out and make really as complete a bombing table as you want to serve your needs. The one advantage of what we're going to do today is that we're going to do it all from the cockpit and not from a ballistics report. So we're going to go test how DCS actually works, regardless of how anyone thinks it does or should. Okay, well, let's just get taken off here and get headed out to the range, and then I'll explain a little bit more about what's going to be going on. Okay, I'll point out, if you were watching that takeoff carefully, one thing should be apparent to you. I don't spend a lot of time in the F5, and that's actually kind of the point today. I want to go out and try this in a jet that I'm not that familiar with, because I'm not going to be familiar with the F4 when I have to try it that way. And so I want to show you that you can actually, with just a little bit of work, start to actually gain some proficiency doing things you're not used to doing in an aircraft you're not used to flying. So what we're going to do is we're going to go out and develop that bombing table, as I said. But we're also then going to start to memorize not just the numbers that we need, but the cockpit cues up to and at the moment of release. This is mostly about the sight picture, like what you see on the HUD, such as it is, but it's also about the sound and also to some extent the mental picture of the analog instruments, the positions of the needles. We want to be able to develop the ability to sense when we're in the right place and what to do to get there. And I want to point out that we will under no circumstances be able to do that, particularly well today, because doing it well is going to take practice, because it means developing a sort of muscle memory, which can only be developed by doing the same thing the same way many, many times. But first we have to figure out what to do to get the result we want, and then we have to learn it by doing it over and over again. So, we're going to be ably assisted in this task today by the target impact tracking script, because it will give us a fairly precise feedback that we could probably not get from just looking around the cockpit or even looking at the bombs on the ground. Now, I chose the F-5, as I said, for a couple of reasons. In addition to it not being an aircraft I fly an awful lot, at least not for bombing missions, it also gives about as little help as you could expect in dropping iron bombs. The only cue you get is a sight reticle that you can depress. That's it. You don't even have an aircraft datum point on the HUD. Now, this makes the process about as challenging as it can be. I don't know what the F4 will look like, but I don't think it'll be any more sparse than this in terms of assistance cues. Secondly, the F5 is an aircraft that's actually pretty simple to operate and fly, and so that means that there's not really going to be a whole lot to distract me from the job at hand, because flying the aircraft isn't much of a challenge, but getting bombs on target with it is. So, as you can see, we're coming around the back of the range, if you're familiar with the iron bombing test range. If you're not, if you watch many of my videos, you'll have seen me do this many times before. So, let me explain how we're going to build the bombing table, as I put it. We're going to use a little bit of a, DCS life hack here that involves using active pause. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll in on the target as if we were going to drop a bomb on it, but instead of pickling when the sight is on the target, what we're going to do is hit active pause, and then we're going to drop the bomb so we can see where it goes. And then we're going to use that feedback to figure out what our sight depression should be. I'll show you how that's going to work in a minute. We're going to do that a few times to try and refine the sight depression. Now, the target impact tracking strip is going to give us all of the other parameters we need, including dive angle and speed. And so we're going to start putting all of that together into what would effectively be a bombing table entry. And then we're going to do a few runs where we use that information and see if we can actually hit the target. Now, this is going to be a very repetitive video. I warn you right now, we're going to do this a lot in this video. If you want to just see how it works out, you can skip to the end. But if you want to see the process, then keep watching along. And again, as I said, if you want to get good at iron bombing, you're just going to have to use to getting to do it a lot, I think. And I think that's really going to be true of the F4. Okay, so we're rolling in. It's just not that steep a dive, but let's use this as a starting point anyways. So now I'm going to try and get the reticle up to the target. I'm letting it come up to the target, and then I'm going to hit active pause when it's there. Okay, now this is a pretty low drop altitude. I'm doing that partly because it's just easier, I'll be honest, but it will still demonstrate the technique. So now I've dropped the bomb, and you see it falls quite far below the sight, because obviously we need to depress the sight. So what we're going to do is just depress the sight until it's on the bomb impact, because that's where the sight essentially should have been in order when we drop the bomb, because that's where the bomb went. So now that we have that, we have a sight depression of 57 mils. There are the other parameters that we need from the target impact tracking script. So we're in a 28-degree dive at 2,000 feet at 500 knots. As I said, that's a pretty low drop height. Normally we would probably want to develop the ability to drop a little bit higher, but I think we'll just do this today because it's a little bit easier and it'll at least show the technique that we can use. So, we have the reticle depressed to the level we think we need. We know the numbers that we think we need to fly, 2,000 feet, 30-degree dive, well, a little bit less than a 30-degree dive, around 500 knots. So we're going to go out and try and replicate that. Again, we're going to do the same thing where we use active pause, and we're going to see how close we get to where we actually put the pipper. We may have to do this a couple of times to kind of refine our numbers, kind of bracket the target, is how you think of it if you've been in the artillery, as I have been. But as we do this, we're gradually going to converge on what we think is a set of numbers that we can use, and then we're going to have to start memorizing what things look like in the cockpit, and then we're going to go back out and we're going to actually try and do this again, the usual way, not stopping in the middle like we're doing now, and see if those numbers that we're developing and that sight picture that we're getting used to actually allows us to hit a target. So we're coming around again. I'm actually maybe going to try and get a little bit closer to the target this time. I think 30-degree or 28-degree dive angle, probably less than we want. I think you'll probably find that steeper dives are a little bit less sensitive to being completely accurate, to hitting exactly the same numbers every time. So, you know, a shallow dive works pretty well with CCIP, but when you're not using CCIP, I think you want to get in closer to the target and get the dive angle up there, because it will just be easier to hit the target without having to be so precise about hitting your numbers. So I'm going to try a little bit, see if we can get a little bit steeper dive. I suspect that the bomb is therefore going to go long because we're in a steeper dive, but we'll just adjust the sight pipper accordingly, or I should say the reticle accordingly. I'm treating the middle of the reticle as my pipper here, obviously. Alright, so rolling in again. Yeah, this feels like we're a little bit, we're a little bit steeper dive, I think. Same thing, we just want to get the pipper on the target, or at least close to it. I'm not really worried about hitting the target, I'm worried about hitting the pipper. And right about there, feels like about right. Nope, it's too high, that's about right. Okay, so now I've launched the bomb. So you can see I looked and I realized I'd started a little too early. Okay, bomb went long, as we expected it to do. I'm just waiting to see what the target impact tracking strip says. I think I'm going to pick sight depression that's between where we are now and where it would be to hit that bomb impact. Let's just see here. Okay, we're about 32 degrees, so good. We're 5 degrees steeper, about the same altitude. We are going a little faster, so I'm not going to go up all the way to that. Let's just pick something in the middle. Why don't we just pick right around there, which is looks like it's going to be about 47, 48 mils. So taking 10 mils off our sight depression. And a lot of that's coming from the steeper dive, and honestly, I think our dive could be even a little bit steeper, so let's go try again. See if we can get a little steeper dive. It'll probably mean refining the sight depression again a little bit more, but I think we're slowly zeroing in on it here. Okay, once again, trying to get in just a little bit closer to the target. Again, we're just using the cockpit cues, using a sense of where the target is off the rail when we're more or less level. It's just about even with the rail when we're level, actually, now. That looks like a good cue. And so we may go a little bit long again on this one if we're a little bit steeper, but we'll try and take a little bit off the speed. We'll just see where we go. So we're going to do the same thing. Going to do another pause, active pause run here. Get ourselves lined up again. I'm not really not too worried if I hit the target. I do want to get close to it, but I really want to know if I can hit the pipper. And hit it at the right altitude, which is around there. Okay, getting better at judging the altitude anyways. It's a little high. Let's drop the bomb and see where it goes. Okay. This time it went a little bit long again, but the dive angle's feeling better here than it did before. So let's just see what the target impact tracking script thinks. I think we're getting pretty close to the parameters that we want to use. Just want to check them with the numbers there with the target impact tracking script. There they are. Okay, 2,400 feet, 37, 38 degrees, a little bit more than 500 knots. I think that's pretty good. So let's see, where do we want to put our sight depression? Let's just pick a round number here. Let's go with 40, and then we're just going to basically have to see if we can do this again. Alright, so let's go around and see what we can do trying to replicate those parameters with that sight depression. And one thing that's nice about the F5 is it does tend to get back to altitude in a hurry, unlike some of the other iron bombers you may go out and use. Okay, so this time I'm hoping that I've got the sight depression right. I'm actually going to try and hit the same dive parameters, release parameters that I did on the last one. So about 37, 38 degrees dive angle, about 2,400 feet, and about 500 knots. And then hopefully that will allow us to use the sight depression we've set of 40 degrees. I like 40 degrees because I think it basically means that the top of the reticle is now pretty close to the aircraft datum point. So that's going to actually make the roll in a little bit easier. I'm going to try and put the top hash mark there on the reticle, basically on the target as I roll out. See if we can start making that work. Because again, the problem is without any kind of pitch ladder in the F5, you really don't have a lot of cues to help you get lined up as you're rolling out, which, you know, again, makes it a little bit more difficult to be accurate. You just have to get used to the way the aircraft flies and what the picture looks like as you roll out. So that's what we're going to be doing. Alright, so once again, and I just do want to make sure I don't go too fast. It's a little pretty easy in the F5 to pick up speed, but once you've established the speed you want to use for dropping the bomb, then you gotta be careful to try and hit that. So I want to roll in around 350 knots. That seems to have been working pretty well. And then if I pull the power back to where I have been, should be able to hit around 500 knots. And you got to stay nice and close to the target, even maybe a little closer than that. Just judging it by the last one. Now we're starting to get this by feel, trying to get it to feel like it did the last time, trying to get the cockpit to look like it did. Okay, once more, gonna roll over, and I'm gonna pull the lift vector up to the target. I'm watching the top of the reticle, trying to get the top of the reticle up to the target, and then, went too far. And then just let the sight move up, and I need to try and figure out how to get it where I want to hold the reticle to get the sight over the target at 2,500 feet, or 2,400, right about there. Okay, so we're a little bit long and a little bit low. And but the reticle, the top of the reticle is about on the outside circle there. Okay, but that's actually only about 25 meters beyond where the pipper is. Okay, well, that's pretty close. I would say that that's not going to get a whole lot better than that, given what we're looking at. So now the trick is to figure out where to put that reticle when we roll in so that we don't have to do a lot of pushing and pulling to get the reticle, or to get the pipper over the target at 2,500 feet. Let's take a look at what the target impact tracking script says here. Okay, 2,400 feet, a little bit more, the 38-degree dive angle, and around 500 feet, and we got pretty close. I think that's, we'll call that a target round, at least for my money. It's not very close to the big middle of the target, but it was close to where the pipper was. Okay, so there was a bit of stream of consciousness going on there while I was dropping the bomb. Maybe let me explain. Now what I'm trying to do is, now that I think I've confirmed that I have a good sight depression, what I want to use is the sight picture to try and figure out not just where to be when I drop the bomb, but how to get there. And the process that I like to use, which is similar to what you would be taught if you were in the Navy rather than the Air Force. I want to pick a point on my HUD. In this case, I'm going to pick the top of the reticle, because that's around the datum point of the aircraft, the datum line of the aircraft. I want to figure out where to put that on the ground, such that if I leave it there and just hold it there, when the pipper's over the target, I'll be at the right altitude. So I don't have to be trying to time the altimeter. I can actually look at the sight picture and time my drop by looking at the pipper. So based on that, I think somewhere between the inner and outer marks, so somewhere around, 30, 40 meters from the target, I want to aim about that far beyond the target with the top of the reticle, and then the pipper should be over the target when I'm at the right altitude. Now, this is going to require me to start learning how to measure, 50 meters on the ground when I'm not on the range where I got a mark that shows it to me, but I think that's a skill that you can learn. So let's just see how that works. We're going to pick a mark a little bit beyond the center, maybe a little bit beyond the inside ring, so somewhere between 25 and 50 meters. I'm going to try and hold the reticle there, and then wait for the pipper to cross the target when I will pickle. So now I'm really getting more serious about trying to hit the middle of the target. Right about there. Nope. So that's too high. See, that's 3,100 feet. Let's go a little farther. There. Okay, now that's a little low. But still, now we can see where the reticle is. It's a little bit beyond the inside ring. Well, yeah, we nailed the center of the pipper and pretty close to the center of the target. So I would say that is the sight picture we're looking for, folks, right there. See what target impact tracking script tells us about our numbers, but Basically what we want is the top of the reticle about 25 meters beyond the target. And then our release parameters are, well, they're a little bit lower, 2,000 feet, and a little bit slower than we have been using. So if we drop higher and faster, it will probably also, work out a little. So I think that sight picture is what we're looking for, though. We want the reticle around 25 meters beyond the target, and then we just need to be patient and wait for the pipper to come up to the target. And then we pickle, and with the sight depression of 40 mils, that should give us a good drop. So let's go around and actually try this again without stopping in the middle and see how we do. Okay, so coming around again, now it's starting to get really important to try and get our roll in the same place, because we're going to try and get a consistent dive angle particularly, and also try and get our speed fairly consistent. And then I'm not going to be looking at the numbers for altitude or airspeed very much. I'm going to be listening for the airspeed, because I'm getting used to kind of what it sounds like at 500 knots and what it feels like when I roll in. And then I'm going to be trying to use the pipper, use the reticle to judge my altitude. So I'm going to put the reticle just beyond the target, but on the inner ring, so around 25 meters. And when the pipper comes up to the target, I'm going to assume I'm at the right altitude, and I'm going to pickle then. So let's see how that works out. Again, trying to roll out with the reticle on the target. It's still going a little farther beyond in the F5. And I've got to keep it on, keep it close, don't let it rise, keep it close there. All right, well, let's see how we did. That doesn't look too bad. Let's see what Target Impact Tracking Script has to say. We'll go around and maybe try it again here, see if we just got lucky. All right, give me the numbers. Give me the bad news. Well, actually, that's not bad. So we're a little short, but we were a little high. But, we're 1,000 feet high, but we were only 10 meters, 15 meters off the pipper. So I'm pretty happy with that. It means that a dive angle, up here around 38, 40 degrees, it's not all that sensitive to us hitting that number exactly. It was very sensitive at 25 degrees. So I think that's a good reason to dive a little bit more steeply. Anyways, we were short 15 meters, but I think in the F5, getting within 15 meters of your target, you're doing pretty well. Probably learn to do it a little bit more consistently, a little better if I did this a lot. But I'm happy that I am figuring out how to correct the mistakes that I'm making, so that means that I think I could practice profitably using this system. So I'm pretty happy with how things have gone today. Admittedly, it's half an hour flying around in circles, but I think it's half an hour that's been reasonably well spent. So let's see if we can confirm whether that was just luck or whether we can actually get some consistency out of this approach. So again, I'm just going to try and get the top of the reticle coming up to the target. Once it goes past the target, I'm going to stop it on that first ring, 25 meters beyond. Just waiting for the pipper to come to the target right about there. Let's see how we did that time. That one looks like it might have gone a little long. And we'll have to see what the numbers say in the Target Impact Tracking Script. Well, depending on how these look, if these look pretty good, maybe what we should do for the next run is actually go around and look at it and see how do we do. Okay, this time we were a little long. We were also low, shallow, and fast. So, but, within 20 meters, even with dive parameters that were kind of that far off the nominal, I'm pretty happy that this is a good set of parameters to use, because I think we can get pretty close to hitting it. Okay, well, let's just try to confirm that theory using a real target, by which I mean a different target than we've been using. Let's use that white hangar-like building, and so this means I won't have the same distance cues and everything. It's a little bit more like if I was using a target for real. Now I really got to get used to trying to use the cockpit cues to figure out how close to get, try to figure out where to put the reticle when I roll out. And again, I'm going to be reasonably happy if I can get fairly close to the target. Within 50 meters for sure, and within 25 would be nice. But, we've only been doing this for half an hour, so I'm not expecting fantastic results. I'm going to put the reticle about there, about there, about there, about there, and to the right. Okay. And I think that was a little bit to the right. And it was a little bit long. Okay, well, let's, I'm not satisfied with that. And it really wasn't the bombing table problem, and the problem was me getting lined up on the target. And again, as I said, there are some challenges in doing that with the F5, at least for me right now. So I'm going to go try that again. And the target impact tracking script confirms that our range was pretty good. We were mostly just to the right. And again, we were steeper and faster and higher. And so all of those add up. When you put all those things together, you still end up getting fairly close to the target. So it's not a bad setup here. We seem to be able to hit the mark in terms of where we want to release, even if the numbers aren't identical to what we've sort of put in our bombing table. And that's my point about using bombing table numbers. Having bombing table numbers and hitting them are two entirely different things, but having a sight picture that you know works is something that you can replicate over and over again, regardless of what the numbers tell you should work. If you can make it work in the cockpit, then you can make it work. And so that's really what this whole thing is about, is we start with some numbers, but then ultimately we need to get the cues that we need to use to tell us if we're in the right place, and also the cues we need to use to get us there. There's no point in knowing where you have to go if you have no idea how to get there. So let's see if we can do this a little better now. The problem the last time was I just didn't roll out very well. And so I want to roll out better there. I'm under the target. I need to get the reticle up to the target and stop at just the other side of the building. Yes, somewhere around there. Try to keep it in the middle, somewhere around there. There we go. And let's see how we did. All right, scratch one hanger. So, that looks to me like a pretty successful bombing run using, the bombing table we developed today. I suspect I'm going to end up doing a lot of this in the F4 when it comes out. I don't know what method you're going to use. Let me know if you have your own techniques for figuring it out. I think we're all going to have to do some work when the F4E drops, and that's actually going to be part of the fun. So, those results in the target impact tracking script look pretty good to me. I'm pretty happy with that. And for now, this is going to be Sidekick, signing off.